Hello, my friend, and welcome to episode 367 of the Sales Podcast. I'm Schaeffer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. And today we have Mr. Deepak Shukla. He is an SEO expert, so you are in for a treat. I have a love affair, shall we say, with SEO, search engine optimization, creating content that gets found organically. I'm a big fan of it. I've grown my business that way. But like all things in business, on the interwebs, it changes. It evolves over time, so you've got to stay up to date. And so Deepak brings in some good insight that is going to help you get more clients, lower your client acquisition costs over time. All right, SEO is not a quick fix. It is a long term. It is a marathon. All right, and we get into that. We get into the difference between general SEO for a national or international play versus local SEO and how it is different. Speaking of which, I've got a new service. If you go to thesaleswhisperer.com/optimize, you can run a report on your own business and see how you perform in a local search. And you can see how your listings are performing, how many are correct. You'll be surprised at how many are not. And how many other businesses are doing better than you, especially with reviews. So check that out. It's a free tool. If you want to talk about it when we're done, just email me and we can review that. But that's thesaleswhisperer.com/optimize. The previous episode, we had Todd Capone on. Todd's a good dude. I got a lot of info from him. The subject of that, the title was Learn How to Make Irrational People Buy. And guess what? Humans are irrational people. So go listen to that episode if you haven't already. The next episode coming up is a repeat guest, Jason Redmond. He is a retired Navy SEAL. He was shot 7 times. He tells his story again, which it's evolved because he's evolving. He's written a book. He's got another book coming out. He helped me with promoting the Tampa Bay Frogman Swim the first time. Now I'm doing the San Francisco Frogman Swim in July, so I'll start raising money for that here pretty soon. But you're in for a treat hearing his story, hear what he has had to overcome. It will inspire you. I guarantee it. So you're in for a treat. And I was thinking here how I opened the show, and I've always said, at least for a long time, I say, hello, my friend. And I think, I look at people on Facebook Live and other podcasts, like, hey, Instagram, hey, Facebook. And I'm like, man, that feels so impersonal. But then it's like, you and I may not have met. So you think, are we really friends? Let me tell you something. If you're listening to this podcast, we are kindred spirits. I appreciate you taking the time. I do not take it for granted. If we see each other in public, you tell me you listen to the show, I'm immediately going to like you, okay? That's just human nature. It's like paying someone a compliment. I'm always talking with people, how do you break the ice? And try this, right? If you're out in a Starbucks, you're out at a grocery store, pay someone a sincere compliment. Hey, I like your shoes. Hey, I like your watch. Men, we got to be a little careful with women. They're going to think we're flirting. If you're married, you could say something, like, whatever. I like that watch. I'm considering getting something for my wife for her birthday, for her anniversary. May I ask you what kind that is? So you kind of drop in the hint that you are married, you're not flirting, you really are interested in whatever. I don't know anything about shoes. Fortunately, my wife is not a big shoe-aholic either, but maybe your wife is. You can say, hey, I'm looking for something for my wife. I think she liked those shoes. May I ask you the brand? But when you pay someone a sincere compliment, you are validating their judgment. You are telling them that they're smart, that they're elegant, that they make good decisions. And you'll be pleasantly surprised at how easy the conversation flows from there. You don't even have to say much about yourself, if anything at all. Hey, I like that watch. Where'd you get it? What kind of watch is that? Do you have others like that? How long have you been into watches? And man, wow, what do? You can afford such nice watches. I mean, and it just goes and goes and goes. And I've had extensive conversations where I've said almost nothing about me. I actually will play a game. When I'm meeting people, I'll tell them nothing about me. Even though they'll ask, I say, "What do you do?" "Well, I do a lot of things, sales and marketing." But let me ask you, I mean, a watch like that, how do you get that? How long did you have to save up for that? Blah blah blah. And then when it's time to go, they're like, "Man, I still don't know what you do." So, let me get your card. I'll give you a shout. Is that okay? Or can I text you? Find you on Facebook, LinkedIn. We'll set up a time to talk. I leave that curiosity. Okay, if it's somebody through our conversation, through my giving compliments, through my asking them questions, what's going on in their life, then I know if that's an ideal prospect for me, that's worth more time, setting up time to speak, maybe do a Zoom call, do a demo of software, HubSpot or whatever. Maybe that's a fit, but I want to get to know them. I don't want to talk about myself. I got to get to know them, okay, when I'm out and about and prospecting. But again, if you tell me you listen to my podcast, that's a compliment. You're complimenting me. I'm going to be honored. I'm going to say thank you. Tell me your name. What do you do? How long have you listened? How long have you had such good judgment to listen to the best podcast on the interwebs? Okay? So you are my friend, and I mean it. So when we're out and about, if I see you, or shoot me an email, hit me up online. You'd be surprised at how few people speak up online. People don't leave reviews. I don't get it. We'll leave a negative review. Look how many times we will light people up online. And I feel bad. Every morning I wake up, I look at my Facebook memories. And I delete old stupid stuff. I reshare the few smart good things I said over the years. Look at the old baby pictures, dog pictures. I'm always posting my baby napping. But I mean, just today, I deleted a complaint. It's like we're so quick to complain. Delta lost my luggage. United Airlines is terrible. I can't believe how long the line is at In-N-Out, blah, 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 blah. Who wants to hear that? So I do my best, absolute best, to not complain online. Yes, sometimes things are bad. Hertz gave me a reservation and then didn't keep it a couple of weeks ago when I was in Dallas. And I tagged them. I'm like, "Hertz, what's going on? I'm not happy." So it did get their attention. It did help me, although the local people made it right. It took an hour. But I try to give a lot more compliments for someone. Hey, I had great service here. Jack was a great waiter, whatever. Take the time to give people more compliments. Stop complaining, okay? It's going to go a lot farther. You'll feel a lot better at a minimum. So apply that to your growth strategy moving forward the rest of 2019 and let me know how that goes, okay? But give me a review. Hopefully it's a 5-star review, but I mean, if something can be improved, I'd appreciate an email or a phone call, but hey, if you want to do it publicly, that's cool. I got thick skin. I can handle it. But let me know you're listening. I'm easily accessible on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, email. I'm accessible. So let me know you're out there, okay? Let me know that you reciprocate the friendship, would you? Now let's bring on our guest. Deepak Shukla, founder of PearlLemon.com. Man, I heard you're some kind of SEO guru or something, so we're going to find out, all right? But welcome to the Sales Podcast, man. How the heck are you?
Wes, I am excited to be here. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. And yes, indeed, let's find out, my friend.
So I appreciate you making time. You're rescheduling, then you're not rescheduling. So I'm happy to see that even though you look perfect online, there's a little like 0.001% of a glitch every now and then.
You're being nice, aren't you? Yes, there are indeed glitches, and the panache that people see online, of course, has been carefully constructed. But then when we go real world, things happen. But here we are. So yeah,
hey, listen,
absolutely.
Look, I grew up in the South. English was an elective. Okay, don't use words like panache. I've got to pause the interview. I got to go to Google. I got to look up these words. All right, you got to keep this thing simple, man.
Touche. You're right. You're quite right. I apologize.
Don't be using the Queen's English and stuff. All right. I will shut this show down, man.
I'll have a word with Maggie and I'll let you know.
So all right, we're going to get into Pearl Lemon in a little bit, but tell me, man, I've heard SEO is dead. Why should we even listen to you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good question. I definitely would understand why a lot of people do think that, right? Because SEO is one of those weird things that you don't know, am I really getting a result? Like, I don't know. You know, you make a cold call and you know what happens as the consequence of that cold call, right? Because you speak to the other person on the end of the phone. And that is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And here's how I think that SEO can help something like that cold call and can potentially become one of the most important arsenals in your weapon. If you're comparing, right, SEO, for example, to cold calling, right, or anything where you can see the result of, we're making the wrong comparison. We're absolutely comparing apples versus oranges, right? SEO relates to really how people find you and not how you find people. That is probably the single biggest distinction between what we do when we go out and tap somebody on the shoulder, or we stop somebody on the high street, or we call somebody before they're leaving the office, versus that same somebody on the high street, on the shoulder, in the office, going and searching for a solution to their problem. And where do they search, or where do we search, dude? What do we do when we need something? When we want to find our local cafe and we're in a new spot, we don't know where we're going. When we want to find out like a new restaurant, when we want to look for a particular service, right? Let's say, oh, I want to get into like Google Ads retargeting, bro. And you're like, I don't know anyone that does that. Where's the first place that we go to? We go to Google, right? For all of those things. So that is where SEO becomes really powerful. And that is why I think SEO is a really, really strong part of your arsenal alongside cold calling or anything else, because it's about how people find you. And then everything else becomes easier, right? Because you already know if they're looking for you, that they want your service. It's just a question of deciding who they're going to buy from.
Should I rename my wife Google? Where are my black socks? Top left drawer. Where's the peanut butter? It's behind the syrup. I mean, she knows everything, dude.
It's about in all of the relationships we have in life, right? Recognizing people's strong suits and allowing them to use their power. So, dude, your wife and my partner are alike to that extent.
So you mentioned, like, you know, you're in a new area and you look up something. How different or similar is national or international SEO versus local search?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good question. So that example that we just described, right, really is quite powerful when we look at, you know, like a cafe. You know, if you open up a new cafe in downtown New York, wherever, right, and you're like, hey, I want my website or my cafe, Gianluca's Cafe, to appear number one when people search best cafes New York, you know, or cappuccino New York, or best cappuccino New York. That, of course, does not apply when we're looking at, for example, an insurance company. Like, well, Deepak, my company's like, you know, we sell insurance to homeowners. We're a national business. We want anybody from all over the States to find us. So when we're looking into spaces like that, some of the rules or some of the way that people search for a course changes. You know, when you're looking for home insurance, when you've, you know, just bought your first property, or maybe you're investing and you've got 10 new properties and you're like, well, maybe I need a different kind of insurance across all of my properties. You still go to Google and you search. What tends to happen, though, is when you're looking at things that relate to national search, it means that what I do and the way that I approach it is a little bit different. When I'm looking at stuff that's local, when I'm looking at a cafe that's local, or a salon, or a local insurance agent, or a local real estate agent, then we look a lot at basically what can we point towards a website from a local perspective to help that website, or to help your website, to help your cafe rank higher. And if we're looking at that nationally, then it's really a case of applying the same principles, right? Well, who is speaking about the Sales Whisperer nationally, and making sure that we've got an appropriate almost level of links going to your website. But then also what you might find is that if you're trying to be found nationally, other things become more important. If you're a cafe, right, and you're trying to find a cafe, if your website loads in 7 seconds, I'll be honest with you, it's not going to be the end of the world, because people are trying to find a cafe to go and sit in. Now, if you're trying to sell a watch and you're trying to do that internationally or nationally, or if you're trying to sell home insurance and, you know, I'm Deepak, I'm Googling, I probably will leave a website if it takes more than a couple of seconds to load, because I'm like, oh, well, you know, there's 4 different websites I can open here. So different factors tend to become more important. So there's kind of some of the insights that become different when we're thinking about national versus local.
Right. So you mentioned, you know, cold calling versus SEO. I mean, we live in this instant gratification world. Plus we got to pay the bills. You know, if I'm in even a moderately competitive industry, what's a realistic time to start to see SEO pay off? Is it 30 days? Is it 90 days? You know, and then should I spend money? You know, does PPC help with SEO?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a really good question. So timeline depends upon how much money you want to throw into something, right? And how competitive that industry is. If you want a simple example, hey, Deepak, I want to fight MMA. Great. So MMA is a big thing. Well, what do you want? You want to be a Conor McGregor, or are you saying that you want to go for your local tryouts and, you know, fight guys who are, you know, coming at it for the first time and are just journeymen? What is it that you want to be? Do you want to be a Conor McGregor, or do you want to fight at your local fair? So there's 2 things that we need to understand about what we want to approach, or how quickly we want to get results. If you're like, Deepak, I want to be a Conor McGregor, right? Or I want to be, you know, whoever you want to be, then you can definitely get results faster because you're going to train that much harder, meaning that I would work a lot more aggressively in terms of trying to get you ranked. Okay, Deepak, so I want to get Conor McGregor level results. So you're telling me you can get it in 30 days. I'm telling you that we could get it much quicker than you ordinarily would. What we can't do, and that's the God's honest truth, what we can't do, as you can do with cold calling, is that within the space of 30 days, you might get a level of predictability within an industry, right? So you might be like, right, we want to target, basically, we want to cold call real estate agents and upsell them our insurance services for the homeowners they speak to, right? And you might know that, right, if we target the geographic region of New York, we've got 15,000 real estate agents from one-man businesses to these kind of multinational locations, and we're going to just hit them one by one. And you might be able to build a level of predictability. Now, you can do that with SEO, but for the first 90 days, you've got to actually just run your clinical trial. You've got to do all of the right things and then see what results you start to get. And you then start adjusting. So in that way, and here's the interesting thing, I'm kind of figuring out as I'm talking out loud, right? In that way, that's actually quite similar to launching a new campaign with cold calling. If you're like, right, let's try and see if what we did in New York applies to Sacramento. And then you might discover there's so many different nuances to Sacramento that maybe it's not densely populated. So maybe, you know, there's not as big as a market. Maybe a lot of these guys work on email and they don't work on phone because they're always working from home. So therefore, you're not getting through to anybody's lines. And there's all of these kind of local nuances that mean, you know what we did in New York does not work for Sacramento, because these guys are never answering their phones because they're at home with their wife Maggie on their barbecue, and they're not worrying about it because they get 3 inquiries a week, and 1 inquiry is a deal for them. Whereas in New York, everybody's on their hustle, so everybody's always by their phones. So these are examples that actually do hold equivalence within the SEO space. And the only way to truly give you an answer, if I'm being honest, Wes, is that I'd say, yep, I have seen results within particular industries as soon as within 45 days. I can't guarantee you that you will get the similar result within 45 days. But what I can tell you is I'll figure out within the first 45 days how good of a result you'll get. You'll get a good result, but then give me some time to run my clinical trial. Let me set my own benchmark, and then let's work from that benchmark and improve the results that we can get. And the final thing that I'd say, and this is the one thing that's singular to SEO, it has a lowering cost of acquisition over time, right? So once you rank page 1 for real estate real estate brokerage New York, that is a ranking that's going to continue to generate high quality leads for you over time. And the money that you need to attach to keeping that keyword on page one will also kind of lower over time. It's hard to get there, and then maintaining it doesn't cost as much as it does to get there. And then what you'll probably say to me, like, Deepak, I now want to rank for real estate insurance as well as real estate brokerage in New York. So let's work on a second keyword. And you know what? That second keyword will help the first one. So then what you'll find is that your $2,000 a month that you're spending on SEO will, for the first 6 months, be a black hole. You'll make no money back. You'll spend $12,000, but then over time, the actual return on investment, even if you just keep the same level of spend, will slowly, steadily increase until it becomes a little bit like passive lead generation. And that's how it differs, I think, from anything you do that's kind of, push marketing, where you reach out to somebody.
So you're talking about the timing of that. I mean, over in 6 months' time, I mean, what is SEO anymore? I mean, it used to be a lot of black hat stuff.
Yeah.
Right. It was people gaming the system, using, keyword stuffing. What do they call it? The blogging, like a private blog network or something.
Yeah, exactly. PBNs. Exactly.
PBN. I mean, that stuff is, that's all pretty much gone, right? Is it now just, is it just writing good content? Is it good naming structures? I mean, naming your images instead of just being IMG_4621.
Yeah. Understood. You know what, Wes, it's probably the one biggest fundamental thing that every business owner can do, and I don't know why every business owner doesn't do, is that, if you're in the sales space, right? It's in the name. What boggles my mind is that there's lots of industry experts, right? Because you got to have a degree of expertise if you start up a company in the real estate space, in the sales space, in the insurance space. Communicate that content in a really digestible way on your website. If you're limiting the sharing of knowledge that you have about your industry to boardrooms or bedrooms or heck bathrooms, if you're writing something, and you're not actually producing that content in an in-depth way on your website, then you're definitely missing a trick. And that's kind of the foundations of where you can begin to make SEO work for you, because you need someone like myself, right? And we're an SEO agency, right? We're not a content marketing agency, okay? And this is the distinction I'm going to make. However, SEO, meaning building backlinks, altering, the names of images, making sure that you've got enough text versus HTML, making sure that you're listed in local directories. It can work to a degree, but again, it's like, what kind of business do you want to be? Do you want to be a Google, or do you want to be a Yahoo? If you want to try and be a Google as opposed to a Yahoo, then in that instance, all of those things that you've just described become important, because it's the sum of the parts, right, that get you the end result. And it's the same thing with resumes, dude, right? It's exactly the same thing. You compare two candidates who both went to Harvard, who both, were valedictorians, who both did their first internship. One did them at Google, one did them at one did them at Google, one did them at, Twitter or Instagram or whatever. You're almost comparing apples to apples. So then you begin looking at the minutiae. You begin looking at particular details to determine who's going to be the best candidate, who's going to bring the best quality. And if you want to kind of be the best you can be in any vertical, then look at whoever's the top performer. Have a look at what they're doing. So, in my instance, if I type, what I do for my own business is I literally type in SEO agencies, and then I type in SEO agency London or local SEO services London, and I have a look at what my competition are doing. I look at the people that are paying money for those ads, as well as those people that are appearing top 3. And I think these guys are doing it right, because they're appearing for those terms. So they clearly are doing things that I'm not. What can I learn from them? And what you'll see, and it's probably the same in your industry. It's probably the same in every industry. You begin noticing that they cross their T's, they dot their I's, and they will seek out any competitive advantage.
Yeah. So you mentioned, you're not a content marketing firm. But I mean, what is SEO? Uh,
Yeah.
How important is content, right? Blogging. I mean, back in the day, daily posts, 300 to 500 words.
Mm.
Now it seems to be, maybe a weekly post
Yeah.
of 1,200 to 2,000 words. Most businesses are not going to create content.
Yeah.
98% of people I speak to are not going to write. They're afraid of writing. So what is SEO if it's not creating new content?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I agree. If you're a busy business owner like Deepak, that's all good and well, but you know what? I'm not going to write a 500-word blog post a week. I'm too busy making sales calls. I'm too busy looking at my cash flow. I'm too busy trying to expand into new regions. I'm not going to sit and write, a 2,000-word piece about kind of sales 101. It's just not practical. Agreed.
Well, I think it is practical. I think they're wrong, but hey, they're not going to do it. So what else?
Yeah.
What else should they do?
Absolutely. So if they're not doing that, then build an infrastructure to support having some content written. I think that we know that it's better to produce one piece of excellent content than to produce 10 pieces of what we'd call filler content. My 5 tips on how to start a sales call type of content it's content that will only take you so far. When we or any SEO agency or when someone internally has got a piece of excellent content, then there's a couple of things you can do with that. So number one, you could do, for example, blogger outreach. You could reach out to people that are in your space and say, hey, this is an article that we wrote that, delves into everything you need to know about how to start up a cold calling firm within 90 days as we've done it. Maybe you'd want to link to it, because we notice you write about sales content. Okay. That could be one example. So what that would achieve is that you message 10 people, 3 of them respond, 1 of them actually gives you a link, and that link is a link back. So if you can replicate that process at scale, you begin to become recognized within your space as someone who's got an authority piece of content. And that one piece of content can generate a lot of links, therefore an increase in rankings, and therefore an increase in traffic for your actual website, right? So that is, at its simplest level, what I would do with a piece of content. I would engage in a process like that. Equally, you've got guest blogs, you've got broken link building. So when I say guest blogs, you could write an excellent piece of content and we could, have it appear on the saleswhisperer.com potentially. So I'd maybe reach out to you and say, hey, Wes, I've got some ideas for a piece of sales content that I think it'd resonate with your audience. And here's the key part. Yes, be honest. Yeah, I'm definitely trying to look for a link. But to be honest, I really, do think this content that I've written stands on its own legs. And I hope that you're the judge of it. And you say, you know what? I understand. And this content is excellent. Regardless, I want to link back to it because it, it reflects my audience well. So, engaging in processes like that becomes important. And some people might say, well, Deepak, I could probably do that. And you absolutely should. Then there's all these other things that come into play. What is the, for example, value in terms of ranking that me having a guest blog or me having someone who has another site link back to our site mean? So then we begin looking at the metrics. What I mean by that is I run an audit on all of the blogs we could potentially reach out to see if it's worthwhile, because I might find 10 sales blogs if I'm in the sales game trying to rank my sales website. But then actually I might discover that, 4 of these blogs, this guy's written 100 blog posts, but his website has no authority. He doesn't really have an audience. This is going to be kind of trash from Google's perspective. So is it really worth me doing this? Then I might find another site who have a really great ranking, who appear for lots of keywords. Then I look them up and discover that they built their whole website with PBNs, with private blog networks. And that actually, if you get a link back from them, it can have a lot of negative implications upon your website. So these are some of the potential pitfalls that come with just linking out to anybody, that you might spend all of your time linking out to people that don't really give you the ROI you're looking for, or that equally you might link out for some excellent websites, but they built their websites in quite a suspicious way. And that
Right.
can work until it doesn't. Like the guy who gets caught using in the gym 6 months down the line. Look, buddy, you were winning your CrossFit games, you were winning your MMA fights, but then we found out you dope. So now your whole career's been tarnished. We don't care. Anderson Silva, what? You know, John Jones, what? We don't care anymore. You're a cheat. That's it. Get out. So these are the potential risks with not making sure that all of your T's and dots have been covered. And again, some websites don't care. And it all relates to, in today's age, the kind of business you're trying to build. And I think brand is everything today, because any man in any bedroom, anywhere, or woman can start up their own website, can start up their own anything. And you have to build a powerful brand and think about longevity. And that's where something like SEO and appearing for keywords and becoming an authority in your space becomes really important. It will only help you.
But if people aren't big on writing, how do you get them backlinks?
Sure. Well, you can do a couple of things. So number one, we can produce podcasts, right? This is a podcast. You could submit it to a machine-generated transcription site. You'd probably want to submit it to a place like rev.com where you get manual kind of transcriptions. So, you know, this is something that Gary Vaynerchuk does. Gary Vaynerchuk doesn't write. He records audio, he records video, and build an infrastructure to support the conversion of any video or audio into text. Like, do that. It's honestly, that's the simplest way to do it. And if you're not prepared to do that, then and I say this to anyone who's listening, don't do SEO, guys. Spend your money on the cold calls, spend your money on PPC, bring the people to your site that way. Don't spend your money on SEO because you're not going to get the ROI you're looking for, and you're thinking about spending money in the wrong space.
Yeah. I mean, there's just some things you got to do. You know, oh, I want to go into business, but I don't want to buy any computers. You're like, what? You know?
I want to run a business from my Android. And you're like, yeah, this is not going to work.
I want to have a shipping company, but I don't want to have any trucks. You know, like, what?
Yeah.
Eventually you got to do something, right? What about duplicate content? I mean, is it okay if I make a blog post, can I copy and paste it right to my LinkedIn, make that an article, or share it on Medium or yes. Quora or my Facebook page?
The short answer is yes. The big thing with duplication is okay where you provide attribution. Meaning, guys, you can copy paste a blog onto your LinkedIn, just link back to your actual blog so that Google's pretty damn smart. When you link back to your blog, Google will recognize that is the actual original piece. And that is the kind of authority piece that relates to all of these kind of duplicates that you've written. Now, Google can sometimes, of course, Google's really smart, but don't assume that Google's a genius and then immediately publish one blog and copy and paste it to absolutely every, space that you have without maybe changing one thing. You could do exactly what I've said and say, Deepak, you know what? I took your advice. I published my blog, Sales Tips 101. I then went and put that onto LinkedIn. I put that onto Medium. I put that onto Quora. I put that onto my Reddit. I put that onto my personal website as well as my company website. And then all of a sudden my rankings have dropped and I got in trouble. And I'll be like, well, dude, like space them out, number one. So Google has a chance to recognize in which order that they were actually posted. Just because you posted something 10 minutes apart doesn't mean that Google's going to recognize which one was posted first. So Google might see, for example, your LinkedIn piece is the authority piece of content. Or Google might see that, well, you're publishing these so quickly that you're setting them up to almost fool us and to manipulate our ranking. So there's all of these factors that come into play. So the safest way to do it is publish it on your primary website first, give it a week before you start reposting it. And, or if you're like, well, Deepak, that's not realistic, I'm not going to do it in a week, I want to do it now, I'm in front of my website now, then modify the other pieces. So put in 500 words of a 2,000 word piece onto LinkedIn and then say to read more, head to thesaleswhisperer.com/sales101. Do that, guys. And those two things, publishing them in days apart of each other, as well as modifying it slightly, yeah, you should be good. You should be good. Google will figure it out.
What about PPC? Does it Is it a pay to play world? I mean, if I'm spending a few bucks with Google, are they going to say, hey, we like him better than the guy that isn't spending money with us?
I think that Google's too big to look at your level of spend in a way that's going to also positively influence your organic rankings.
Hey, dude, my $2 a day is important. Don't be shaming me.
Brother, I am not shaming your $2. I am suggesting that you use those $2 in a way that's going to get you the best return from Google. And what I don't want you to do is to pour your money into PPC with the hopes that it's going to help SEO. What are you trying to do here? Are we trying to do organic, or are we trying to do pay for play? Yes, pay for play can definitely help you guys. Your pay-per-click, your AdWords can help you with organic. And it just, think about it, right? You put money into ads, people find your website, they may return to your website 3 days later because they remember seeing the ad. They might leave your website and then bookmark it and come back 3 days later because they bookmarked it. And those searches are going to improve your actual organic rankings. But as soon as you stop PPC, that kind of behavior I've just described is going to stop. So whilst you do PPC, it is going to help your SEO. But once you stop doing PPC, well, then all of that traffic has just disappeared, guys. So no, PPC doesn't help SEO because PPC's help of SEO stops as soon as you just stop paying. So I'd say that, it's like that thing that, I don't even know what I'm trying to say, brother. I've got myself
just don't spend money thinking it's don't do ads thinking it's going to improve SEO.
Yeah, exactly.
In a nutshell.
Exactly.
Is social media considered SEO? Like having good posts, keyword rich, linking back to your site, is that considered a subset of SEO?
So subset is a great word. So not directly, but secondary effects. What do I mean? It's like a signal. So, it's a little bit like looking at someone's kind of mock exam saying that, I see that the paper isn't crumpled. I see that your pen was sharpened or your pencil was sharpened. I saw that you turned up to the exam on time. These are signals that you're approaching the exam in a really constructive way. Equally, when you have stuff shared socially, then it sends a lot of positive signals to Google because Google will see that, well, you know what, this podcast that Deepak was on, he said all about SEO, which isn't directly about sales, but hey, it was interesting. So it got shared. Therefore, Deepak is producing and Wes is producing content that's bringing in a lot of social shares. And Google's able to look at the amount of Facebook shares, look at the amount of, LinkedIn, Twitter. So in that way, it does help. And of course, you've got maybe the third benefit where and when it happens is that you share it, someone else might find you and reach out to you and then maybe link back to you or something. So I'd say that it helps in terms of signals. It doesn't directly influence your actual SEO, but hey, if you're having stuff socially, it's going to help you. So you should be thinking to do that anyway, regardless.
Is it a benefit or a hindrance to have subdomains like blog.thesaleswhisperer versus the saleswhisperer.com/blog?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the blog.saleswhisperer.com is, from Google's perspective, technically a different website, right? It's got a different address at least, right? So it belongs in a different place. So one, I'd say it's a commercial question. Deepak, I'm going to build almost a blog that's going to be standalone. It's going to be a little bit like, the HubSpot's answer to sales. And we're going to produce white papers. We're going to produce 100 different categories. And it's going to be its own baby. And when you're thinking of it in that way, then it makes complete sense to have the blog.saleswhisperer.com. However, if you are looking at Deepak, I'm going to be producing my one blog a week. I'm doing my 500 words. I might do my 2,000 words. And I'm just going to build it slowly and steadily, have it all under the saleswhisperer.com, because the main purpose of that blog then really is to support your service pages or your product pages on your website. Whereas a blog.saleswhisperer.com, if you set that up, then you're looking for it to become an authority website all by itself. to bring in lots of people, and then it deserves its own links, its own setup, and all of the things that we build from an SEO perspective to be handled separately. So that's probably the best way to look at it, I'd say.
Okay, cool. What about separate programs? Like I'm dusting off an old sales training program I created. It was the first one I ever created, called 30-Day Sales Growth. Yeah. So I'm updating it, and my goal is to launch it really before this podcast, even this week. But I own the domain. I was just forwarding it, you know. So is it better to go thesaleswhisperer.com/30-day sales growth, or go ahead and pop out to a separate page that just stands on its own, even though it's only going to be a one page? It's basically going to be a landing page /squeeze page. No blogging, no nothing. It's a program that I offer.
Of course. I'd put it on your main website, dude.
Okay.
I'd put it on your main, from a user's perspective. You kind of want them, it's going to help your sales, because number one, they're going to see all of this huge body of work. Let me read. You might say, well, Deepak, no, actually, because there's a lot of different stuff on the saleswhisperer.com, and I want these guys to buy rather. And I don't want them to start diving into other stuff that might send them down a different tangent. So there's that commercial side to it that needs consideration. If we're just talking on the basis of SEO, then I would say have them on the same domain, because then it increases time on page, it increases traffic. They might leave a comment on your blog. There's all of these avenues that it opens up, which are much harder to achieve if it's on an entirely separate domain. So that's where I'd say you can make a decision.
Yeah. Yeah, because I can always make it a landing page and just strip out the navigation to streamline it. And so, okay, cool. So what's the story behind Pearl Lemon, man? There's no SEO in that. It doesn't say best Pearl Lemon SEO company.com. I mean, all right, so lay it on us.
Good question, dude. I have my wonderful partner Daniela to thank. She introduced me to what I thought was whack, if I'm being honest, at first, when she said we should try lemons on our dressing, and I said that idea is absolutely horrible. I will stick with my balsamic vinegar, with my Caesar salad. Thank you very much. But then I got into it, and I discovered that it was a pretty good alternative. And in combination with that, she often likes to wear pearl necklaces. And this literally happened to be at the time that I was deciding, what in the frick do I call my company? And I had a lemon around me, and then I began Googling random names, thought that, well, pearls could potentially work, but it's probably, it's a weird name, but it's very memorable. I found that it was 3. I registered the domain name, called Daniela, told her she was a genius. She had no clue why, hung the phone up, and here we are today with me getting asked about it as to why. And I like to think that it's a kind of name that once you hear it, you tend not to forget it.
Why not Pearl Lemon SEO?
Because I always had the vision of expanding into different areas, and that's why I wanted to just keep it with Pearl Lemon. We've launched our second agency recently, which is Pearl Lemon Leads. And that's the whole plan, to build different basically units with the brand name being Pearl Lemon. Right.
Very cool. All right. So you mentioned Pearl Lemon Leads, but your main site right now is just pearllemon.com, right?
Exactly.
And then you've got a personal blog that's just yourname.com, right?
Exactly.
Cool. Very nice. Well, man, I know you got to run. I appreciate you sticking it out through the technical issues, but we'll be linking to your websites, and look forward to having you back on the show.
Wes, thank you, sir, for sticking with my technical issues. They were definitely mine. So thank you, brother.
All right. Well, have a good night.
You too. Thank you, sir.
Cheers. Hey, I hope you got a lot out of that. I know I did. I'm reviewing the notes. I've had several SEO experts on over the years, and I need to keep having these guys back on because things do change. But after spending a week in London with my son last November, December, I have a newfound appreciation and love for our Brits. So it was great catching up with him. In the beginning, I mentioned my new service. It's a free tool, thesaleswhisper.com/optimize. And we discussed local citations in this interview. This free analysis will let you know how you're ranking, how you're performing in these citations. So getting that right, getting it standardized across hundreds of directories, managing your reviews, getting inbound links and mentions is critical for local SEO. If you're a chiropractor, a dentist, a contractor, if you do business face-to-face with people, you've got to get this squared away. So go see how you rank. Okay, thesaleswhisper.com/optimize. And if you are looking to hire salespeople, I'm in talks right now with a company that is only in a few big cities. So I'll be talking about them in a few, probably in the next episode. We'll see. I've got a call coming up with them this afternoon. But I'm working with another guy that works nationally. So on the one hand, it is a specific recruiter for specific cities. But if you're looking nationally, we just helped one of my long-term consulting clients hire 2 people in a very small town in Massachusetts. And these folks, the process began March 6th. They were onboarded and starting March 24th. But the kicker is we offer a 1-year money-back, well, not a money-back guarantee. We'll replace them for up to a year. Most, if not all, recruiting firms, and I did this as a living for a short time back in 2000. Most recruiting firms give you a 90-day replacement guarantee. And if you know anything about salespeople and you listen to this podcast, so you are one, but you know about this, hiring salespeople can be tricky. I worked at least 2 jobs for only 6 months. 3 jobs. 2 I was laid off from after that time. 1 I left on my own because I was recruited away. Actually, from the recruiting firm, I was recruited away from them by a company that found me. But salespeople, they'll bounce, okay? And it is expensive to run ads, to interview them, to screen them, to train them, to onboard them. The costs I've seen are anywhere from, obviously 1x up to 3x their base salary, and sometimes more. So it costs you hundreds of thousands of dollars in either real money or opportunity cost, lost sales by not having a superstar on board. So what are you doing to bring on great salespeople? If you want to talk about that, I don't have a link on my website. Just go to thesaleswhisper.com, fill out the Contact Us form, and in the notes, say you want to talk about hiring. And I'll set up a call with my buddy, and totally no pressure. I mean, if you know anything about me, if you listen to this more than once, you know what you hear is what you get. I am laid back, no pressure, no tactics, no gambits, no cheesy high-pressure stuff. Will help you determine if it's the right process for you. Now, look, it is not cheap, okay? But you know the cost of hiring salespeople. If you're tired of playing games, if you want to do it right, okay, if you don't want this to come back and bite you in the butt, give us a chance, okay? You'll be glad you did. And again, there's no setup. Just email me through my website, and I'll set up a call for you, all right? You've got to get this right. And stay tuned. I'm rolling out some new training programs. I'm merging the Make Every Sale program with the 30-day sales growth. Probably going to call it the Implementers. It's going to be all of that content rolled into an annual subscription. You're going to get a little more access to me. I'm also going to roll out my Inner Circle, so even more access to me. It's going to cost a little more money, but hey, I invest in coaching and training as we speak. I'm in a program. I'm always doing that to stay sharp. As soon as I finish this recording, I'm heading to jiu-jitsu 4 to 5 times a week if my body can stand it. Some weeks are harder than others because you've got to keep moving forward. Incremental progress. Too many of us overestimate what we can achieve in a year, but underestimate what we can achieve in 3 or 5. These quick fixes, these instant gratification pushes are crippling you. You've got to have bigger goals, longer term goals that will take more effort, more focus, more energy, more guidance, more mentorship, or you will fall behind. So invest in someone you believe in and stick with them until you've sucked all the knowledge you can out of them, then move on. Bouncing around from coach to coach, I talk about the Masters, it's coming up this week, golf. I just did a Facebook Live about it. But the winner of the Masters will shoot somewhere around 274 strokes over 4 rounds of golf. And quite often they'll win by 1 stroke. That's like about 1/3 of a percent, right? 1 out of 274. But that's over 4 days. So every day over 4 days, they are 1/4 of 1/3 of a percent better than their competition. They're not beating them by, 50 strokes. They're beating them by 1. And the payout is like 70 to 100% more than second place. But at least second place makes some money. In sales, if you and I are 1/4 of 1/3 of 1% worse than our competition, we make nothing. So what are you doing today to ensure that you are 1/4 of 1/3 of 1% better? Just 1% better. What are you doing to stay ahead of the competition? If the answer is nothing, if the answer is binge watching Amazon Prime videos or Netflix or getting into debates on Facebook about Trump or Obama or Pelosi or Russia or whatever, your competition is glad to hear that. So invest in something, in someone. Invest a lot. You're worth it. And then apply yourself. Dig in and apply yourself. You'll be glad you did. So like I said, stay tuned. I've got more info coming on those programs. They're going to be a little more money than they were in the past. But it's even for me, it's going to be more focus, more content, more access, more responsiveness to help you grow your sales. All right? Thanks for listening. I'll go sell something.